So I'll be focusing on chapter 10 of Peregoy and Boyle. And in this chapter, they focus in on the content reading and writing and instructional practices for the pre-reading and the during reading. And so they talk about how to create optimal content learning for ELs. And in order to do this, lessons should have a clear, meaningful purpose. They should also build on the prior knowledge and integrate opportunities to use their language and literacy for learning purposes. And it's important to make sure that it's content-based instruction to avoid any confusions, and it just strengthens their ability to understand the text. And always, of course, provide scaffold for support in their learning and provide opportunities for collaboration, which really helps fuel their engagement with the lessons and their ability to bounce off ideas and formulate and develop new ideas of their own. So focusing on the content-based instruction, it's good to integrate language learning opportunities with content instruction, and as well as extensive reading and student choice and collaboration projects. Make sure that we have an abundance of input and output for the listening, reading, speaking, and writing, and making sure that it builds on their language and content skills. And increasing student engagement through authentic tasks and authentic materials, it just gives the lesson more of a purpose and motivation for the students to actually be more engaged with it. And for elements of proficient readers, basically what are characteristics of a proficient reader. They set a purpose for their reading. They decode words automatically, which is a very strong tool, and it's used best when the lessons are within context. It's much easier to understand and define a word in that sense, and being able to comprehend sentences and the relationship between sentences. The vocabulary is well developed, and they're able to continue developing the vocabulary through their prior knowledge. Having a strong sense of cognitive and metacognitive strategies, and so like reflecting on their own thoughts and what they read, and being able to activate background knowledge based on their purpose. Um, as the resources that ELLs bring to reading, we should definitely engage in their background knowledge, because everyone has good life experiences and interests that should be looked at as a powerful resource in their education. Their level of English language proficiency, in many cases, their primary language will help them with their understanding as they're learning to become more proficient in English. And the prior literacy experiences and funds of knowledge from both primary and secondary language, again, they work well together in order to help them develop their language proficiency and grow an understanding of the English writing system. And ways that readers interact with complex text. There's two types of reading. There's aesthetically, which is for enjoyment, and then there's efferently, which is informational text. And so with a focus on text structure, every genre of text has a different structure, and it's important for students to be able to identify the different types of genres, and being able to differentiate like how the structures are formed together, if it's like a poem or if it's a speech or a persuasive essay or a narrative. Being able to understand the structure and how to break it down is very important, and also just having like an understanding of like the differences between an aesthetic and an efferent reading. And a lot of times like an informational text can be enjoyable as well, but I guess that's more like when you get older, I guess. um, and matching students with the text for optimal learning is very important to have an understanding of what your students' reading levels are. And sometimes their students are at their grade level or below or even above. And so being able to understand what they're capable of, and matching them up with the appropriate text that gives them just the right amount of struggle to help them develop their skills, but not too much where they're just getting stuck and might even regress because they become discouraged by their inability to understand. And so evaluating how students handle written material in the class textbook so that you can adapt the lesson in a text so that it is more accessible. This is like a very important skill for all teachers to recognize. It's not enough for us just to throw a textbook in front of them and just tell them to read. Like, we actually have to provide guidance and make sure that they're capable of reading it. So based on how the students interact with the text, you can create an assignment in a way that will allow students to meet the learning objective for the assignment. And so being able to adjust and create like differentiated instructions for each individual students. All of our students will have different learning curves, and the way that they learn will vary. And so being able to identify and appropriately match with their learning abilities and their reading levels is very important. And so some strategies to promote comprehension. During the pre-reading, it's important to develop motivation and purpose, and a good way of doing this is applying it to their interests or their background knowledge. Their prior understandings of a certain topic will help them be more engaged with it. So if they have experience in films or field trips or simulation games, all these are like strong examples of how you can engage your students into the reading before they even dive into it. And as they are reading, it's important to monitor their comprehension. And so you give them a few tactics of doing this by having them just read the headings and subheadings and use these to create predictions of what the text is probably going to be talking about. And then even they can develop questions at the beginning of what they are curious about from the headings and what they hope to understand. And as they are reading the text, they can look for the answers to these questions. And so building on that, the teacher can also provide guided reading and guided questions for them and walk them through annotating text. So as a teacher, you can say, okay, when you read through this, I want you to highlight certain aspects of the essay or the article, and walking your students through that really helps them to delve deeper into the reading and pull out more meaning from within the text. And so as you can see here, there's a nice little chart where it shows some activities that we can do in the pre-reading, the during reading, and activities for the post-reading as well. And so walking your students through this will help them become stronger readers, and developing these skills will help them become stronger in their independent studies. And the goal is to get them to be able to go into a new text with less and less guidance so that they're able to dive into new knowledge on their own. And that's basically it for chapter 10.